This
Thank
conference
you.
will now be recorded.
You run if you use the sticky stabilizer, you run the risk of pulling the loops if you move it once you have your towel down. So I prefer to use the non-sticky wash away in my hoop. And in the instructions, I've written out a way to make sure that, or what I think is an easy way to make sure that your design is centered exactly where you want it on your towel. And that involves not hooping the towel. So I'm going to start with just the mesh wash away in my hoop. Then I'm going to lay my hoop on there, and on top of my towel in my hoop, I'm going to use wash away topper. Okay. And that will help hold the loops of the towel down while it is stitching. And when you wash it, it'll be gone. However, when you have the satin stitches on your towel, you want a stabilizer under those satin stitches, which is not going to go away. So for that, when we get to the satin stitches, we're going to lay a piece of heat away stabilizer on top of the middle part of the design, the leaf or the pumpkin. And then we're going to put this heat away on top and stitch the satin stitch. The reason being that that heat away, when you wash your towel, will not go away. It will stay under there. And as you use your towel and wash it, it's still under there, keeping those loops of the towel from poking through that satin stitch. Are there any questions about the different kinds of stabilizers that we are using for this project? If you have a little bit of concern about being able to tell the wash away topper from the heat away topper, the wash away is a little more opaque and it is fairly smooth on both sides. The heat away is pretty much transparent like saran wrap, and it's very shiny, and on one side it's definitely very bumpy. And when you put it down on your project, you want to put the bumpy side down because that kind of helps to hold it in place. But both of them, you can tear the excess away really easily when you're finished. And the wash away, you just throw your project in the washer and it disappears. Okay. A little bit of talk about the fabric that you want to use for your applique. On these appliques here, I have used, and in the directions, I suggest that you use something like a linen or an Osnaburg, because when you fray it, you're going to get a nice substantial fringe. If you use just something like a regular cotton and you fray that, you have these just really tiny little threads, and it's almost no fringe at all. So that's why I suggest that you use a heavier thread or a heavier fabric for your applique piece.
Judy, where did you get those plaid towels?
The ones that I have embroidered, these?
Yes.
Out of my stash. I'm sorry.
Oh.
I've had them for quite a while, Diane. Okay. And the difference, and I may be repeating myself, the applique does not have the satin stitch on it. It just has a triple stitch around the edge. And when you do the applique, you do not need for that reason, you do not need the heat away stabilizer. You're just going to use the wash away in your hoop and the wash away topper, because you don't have any loops that you want to keep contained on a permanent basis. So just the wash away topper is all you'll use if you're doing the applique. All right, any questions so far? All right. Let me get my machine. We're using a 120 by 120 hoop. That's plenty big to do our design. So I have mine in my cloud. And on the design names, if it has APPL in the design name, that means that that's the applique design. So I'm just going to select the leaf that is not the applique. And the machine automatically gives me the 120 by 120 hoop for it. Sandy, if you have a question on the icon, I can swing the camera over to it and help you if you need help on that. Okay, because
okay,
right now
yeah.
I'm just using the Epic.
Sure, thanks. I'll let you know. Thanks.
I'm on my icon too, Judy.
Okay, you can ask me questions or whatever, or maybe I should just, because there's two of you on the icon, I should switch over to the icon.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm okay too. I'm okay.
Okay. All right. So I've got my machine all ready, and I'm on the icon. You're going to say touch embroidery stitch out. On the Viking, I'm going to touch go, and it's going to bring up this screen with all my settings on it, and you'll get a screen on the icon also with all your settings on it. And I want you to change some of your settings. If you want to see this in print, I'm going to go through a little explanation of why I'm having you change some of your settings. It's at the very, it's the second paragraph on top of page 2. But Karen Charles was here a week or so ago, and she educated us as to why when you're stitching out a design, which is basically made up of straight stitches, which these designs are, the background, even though it's all cross-hatched and everything, those are just basically straight stitches. And when you are stitching straight stitches in embroidery, you need to make some adjustments to the tension. If you have paid any attention to what happens when you set your machine for embroidery, it will normally drop the needle tension to a much lower number, a much looser number, if you will, for the needle thread, then a much looser number than you use in sewing. However, when we're embroidering these kind of designs, or even quilting type designs, the machine is basically doing straight stitching. Even though it goes around a curve, it's still just as if it's a straight stitch. So you need, in order to get a really nice stitch out, you need to be able to increase the tension. And that's what we're going to do in the settings panel. In the instructions, I tell you how to use the settings menu to do that, but two ways to do it. You can do it through the settings menu, or you can do it through this panel for settings that always comes up when you start an embroidery design. So the things that we want to look at on this settings panel is on the icon, it's called Active Stitch Technology. And on the Viking, it's called Deluxe Stitch System. And by default, that is turned on when you are embroidering. So we want to turn that off. So Diane and Sandy, can you find that to turn that off, the Active Stitch Technology?
Yep.
Yes, I did. Thanks.
Okay. And then in the thread cut options, which I believe is on the left-hand side for the icons, you want the top one is checked, but we want to check the middle one. We do not want it to cut jump stitches. You'll have to trim them manually, but it makes a much neater finish on the back of the towel if you don't have the jump stitches cut, because it'll take those thread ends and kind of wad them up and leave knots which you want to cut off. And if you cut off, then you run the risk of having part of your embroidery unravel, which does not make you happy. All right.
You know, I always cut my jumps myself. I have that off all the time.
Okay. And you're very careful not to cut the knots on the back, right? I would
Well,
suggest that you leave
hopefully.
like a 1/4 inch of a tail on the back so you don't
I-
cut the knots off.
Well, I try.
Okay. I know, we can't be perfect, right? All right. And then the other thing that we want to do right now is we want to turn on based around design. All right. So once we've changed all those settings, we can go ahead and go to the next screen and put your hoop on with nothing but the stabilizer in it. All right. And you will notice, and icons will have to go into stitch out progress. But the Vikings, the tension is showing right here on your screen. So Diane and Sandy, do you see your tension number?
Yep.
And it's
Yes.
2.8.
Yep.
That's the normal embroidery tension setting. And that's what you want when you're doing things like pattern fill and that kind of thing, so that it pulls, the bobbin tension is tighter than the top, and it pulls some of that top thread around to the back. But for the straight stitches, we kind of want the tension even between the top and the bottom. So I'm going to ask you to push the plus sign until you get your tension number up to 3.8. Now, Karen suggested that you try it out and you set your tension somewhere between 3.6 and 4.0. And when I stitched out my latest samples, I used 3.8 and I was very happy with the stitch out. All right. Okay. So now you have your hoop on and you're ready to stitch it out. But I want you to, in order to get your towel where you really want it and get the design centered, your design should come in the center of your hoop. If it's not, you can use your, well, you would have had to do it in embroidery edit to center it in the hoop. But once you get into embroidery stitch out, and this is just my practice towel, so it's got a lot of practice on it. I'm going to use it to show you. I have marked a crosshair on my towel where I want my design, all right? I'm going to lay that into my hoop here. And are you aware of them, and do you use these little marks on the hoop to show you where the centers are, top and bottom and so forth?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good. Okay. So we're going to put the towel in here and we're going to center it just as best we can. And then on the icon, you're going to go to design positioning. And on the Viking also, we're going to go to, come on, quit that. No, I want you to go back to embroidery. What are you doing? Okay. Okay. And then, Sandy, are you used to using this design positioning?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so you want to go to that, and on the icon, down at the bottom right-hand corner, you have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to touch number 2, and then you want to, in this square beside your numbers, you've got the corners and a crosshair in the center. You want to touch that crosshair in the center, and that will move the hoop to that center position. And then you can just pick up your towel and slide it. Let's see. There. Slide it so that if you hand wheel the needle down, it's right in the center of your crosshairs. Okay?
So Judy, I
Yes.
thought, this is good to know. So I thought when you hit that number 2, then you moved, okay, so let's say you hit that center plus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you moved your needle with the flywheel thing to match where your center on the towel was. But you're saying move the towel to where the needle is.
Right.
Okay.
Because you're talking, what you said to do is if you have hooped your towel,
Oh, you're right. Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
But here, you can move your towel so it is in the center of the design,
Perfect.
okay?
I
That's
like it.
especially on this, like a design like this, the design is not quite the same size as the hoop, but if you don't have a lot of room to maneuver, this is a good technique to use.
I like it.
Okay. All right. So once you've got it, your towel in position and your needle is right where in that crosshair, you can lay your stabilizer, which I can't find right at the moment. You can lay your stabilizer on it, and then you're going to be very careful and say, okay, or the check mark on the Viking. And once you do that, it probably turned off your based around hoop, right? Or based around design. It's showing the regular color bars on your screen when you go back into embroidery stitch out. If that happened, on the icon at the top of your color bar, and it's at the bottom on the applique, there's the little symbol of the flower with the stitch out around it, and it'll bring back up on your screen your basting options menu, and you can touch based around design. And I like to put my hand on my hoop, because when I hit that check mark, it's going to move the hoop. But now it's in position to do that basting stitch for me.
So basically, Judy, if you use design positioning after that settings menu comes up, you have to go back.
What? Okay, you're not, okay, yes, you have to reestablish the based
Around
function.
design. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
okay. So, and the other thing I always do, because these are stitching out basically straight stitches, and the machine can stitch straight stitches a lot faster than it can like stitch a pattern fill. I always slow my machine down to at least half speed, if not slower, because it'll go a million stitches a minute, it seems, with those straight stitches. And you'll see that when you start stitching your actual design. But now you can go ahead and, if you've got everything lined up, you can go ahead and do your basting stitch on your design, and then go ahead and stitch out the design. All right. Any questions? Have I told you what you need to know to get started?
Yes.
Okay. Sandy, can you get the designs into your machine easily?
Yes, that's what I was fiddling with, because I didn't open my email quick enough. So I now have the pumpkin, and I'm going to work with you on it.
Okay, perfect. All right, Diane, you okay?
Yep, stitched around design, and I'm going to start it here as soon as I tell you I'm A-okay.
All right. Be aware that when it stitches out, it doesn't just start at a corner and like the bottom left and work its way up to the bottom right. It goes all over the place. And if it looks like it has missed one of these lines in the background here, don't fret, it'll come back and fill it in. So don't feel like your machine is misbehaving. It's not, it's just, I do not understand the logic that it uses to stitch out the design.
Whoever
So,
programmed it went, let's just make it go crazy.
well, I'm sure there is some kind of logic behind it, but it'll end up all there when it gets done. All right. So go ahead and press the go button when you're ready.
So Judy, just a reminder, it will ask you to cut and remove the thread tails as it's going.
Yes, it will.
Should we stop and do it, or just let them?
Well, yes, I'm a fan of stopping and doing it. And I'm also, sometimes it will do the jump stitch and then continue, but not ask you to cut the thread tail. I often stop the machine and cut the jump stitches on the top at least, so it doesn't stitch over them.
Okay, perfect.
And Diane, when you get a color change, then you are going to put your heat away on top of, just put it on top of the wash away and everything. Don't bother about taking the wash away off first.
Okay, but I'll wait till the satin stitch comes up.
Yes, please, because you don't want to try to pick that heat away out of this background stuff here.
Right. Perfect.
Okay. And Sandy, when you get to the point that your design is finished and you're ready to trim your applique fabric, I have a way to make it nice and even that I'll show you.
You know, one thing I know, sewing with you, it's really intense. Oh golly, it's because I'm used to fast forwarding or hesitating. Oh boy, you're a good taskmaster.
Is that a compliment?
Oh yes, it is. I think I'm going to switch from the applique to the other for the moment.
Okay, that's
Okay,
fine.
I'm
But
working on it.
when you get your design finished, then I'll show you my easy way to trim your applique fabric so your fringe
Okay.
is all even.
Okay. All righty. Thanks.
Thank you. If you have any questions as you go along, don't hesitate to ask. Carol Foss, did you get your design sent to your machine?
I'm working on it.
Okay, did the pictures I sent make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. That wasn't Carol's machine. She's having some reconstruction done at her house.
I'm sure you all appreciate me just staying muted.
No problem.
Oh, Judy, I think I used the wrong file.
What did you use?
Well, it didn't do the satin stitch, but it just did the triple stitch around the edge.
So you had the applique file.
Right, but
So-
it didn't, which is fine. I mean, it doesn't have to have the applique stitch.
Well, it looks nicer. You theoretically, okay, if you don't unhoop your towel, okay,
Right, I could build the other design and,
you should be able to, yeah, check it with design positioning and then just put your, did you put your heat away topper down?
yep,
Okay, well then your satin stitch should go right over that top or the triple stitch.
right. So
And you
when I
should be
open,
okay.
Yeah, now I see the satin stitch.
Yeah, you used the one with the APPL in the design name.
That didn't show up on my screen.
Well, it depends on how, sometimes it's going to truncate the names of the
Files.
files because it only has so much room. So sometimes it's better to be able to see the pictures of your designs rather than
Oh.
the listing of them. Okay.
So
You
it
know how
looks like still right in the middle. Yeah. Okay, wish me luck.
All right. Well,
I
You
just want to
can-
advance last stitch, which is the light blue.
well, you should just be ready for color number 2.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And you
Here we
can,
go.
if you want to sew really slowly, you can use your foot pedal. You don't have to hit the go button.
Oh, why would I do that?
Well, just to make sure that it's doing what you want it to.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that.
You can do that.
Awesome. Well, I will keep you posted.
All righty. I'll be sitting right here waiting.
Okay, Judith.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I kind of changed anyway. I have I thought, well, because I wasn't quite prepared, I have a washcloth. I hooped
Okay.
everything, and well, I didn't hoop the washcloth. I basted around it. Well, anyway,
Okay.
my fabric I put on top of the washcloth. My design is already finished now, and I did base the fabric, before. So now I'm ready for the satin stitch. I kind of changed my mind. I don't have the Osnaburg. So I just have some batik. So after I've done my design, when I do I have a dumb question. I'm ready for the satin stitch, but do I trim my my batik or anything?
Okay. Well, if you're doing it on a terry towel or a washcloth,
Correct.
normally you would not use an applique fabric.
That's what I figured. Okay, so now that I did,
Now that you did,
yeah.
all right. Okay, let's do it this way. The first thing that's going to happen with the satin stitch is that it's going to do 2 lines of a straight stitch
Oh,
as
yeah.
its underlay. So
Yeah.
if you manually stop it
Okay.
after let's see, the first one is going to be on the outside, I believe, and the second one is going to be on the inside, if I remember correctly. So once it starts the second row of straight stitching, or either gets close to the end of the second row of the straight stitching, you can
Okay.
carefully trim your fabric, and then the satin stitch should be okay.
Oh, great. It's like a placement stitch for applique then. Oh, great. I get it.
You just have to stop it manually.
Okay, I can do that. Thanks. I'll do it right now. Thanks.
Okay, great.
So Judy, that brings me to a question.
Okay.
When it's stitched around design, then it's stitched again. So I should have, like when I was using the wrong file, one of those stops was for me to put the applique fabric down.
But aren't you doing yours on a fluffy towel?
I am, but because I used the wrong file the first time, I'm just questioning the order of things.
Oh, okay. If you were doing the applique one, you would put your applique fabric down under your wash away stabilizer. So it
Right,
would be
but
at the very beginning.
right, but oh, okay. Before it did any stitching. Okay.
Yes, you would let
Okay.
the base stitch it down along with the towel and the wash away topper.
Okay, cool. Because you know, sometimes in applique, it stitches first and then it stops, then you put the fabric down, then it stitches again.
Right. But this is kind of because this is not an applique that's getting trimmed right up to the edge where it's going to stitch over the edge.
Oh, right, you don't have to do that part. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Golly, do I confuse easily?
Pardon?
I confuse easily, I think. I didn't think it through that far.
Maybe I didn't explain it quite right. I'm sorry.
No, no. It just makes sense that because you're not trimming it, why would you want it to stop so you could trim it, you know?
Right. I'll show you how I trim it here in a minute.
Diane and I think, are like-minded. I just thought about what I could do. I won't this time, but I did trim, and I could probably go back into editing and make that a smidgen larger so it would cover the raw edge, I'll bet, you know, the out trim. I'm not going to, but I wonder if in theory that might work, but I won't do it this time. That's just a thought, because I'm
Okay.
not certain if I can cover my raw edges, you know.
Is the satin stitch not covering it?
I'm getting ready to do it now. I just trimmed without trying to cut off the little things on the towel.
Yeah, that's,
Oh, yeah,
that's
let me
another
try it right now.
thing,
Yeah,
do an applique on a towel.
I know it. Let me do it right.
Mine covered it.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm taking my basting stitch out now. It turned out so cute.
Great.
And Judy, I had purchased like a closeout. I don't know if you're even going to be able to see that basting stitch. Anyway, I had purchased a set of matte threads that was on clearance or something, or special deal or something at the store.
Uh-huh.
Really pretty kind of, I'll show you after I get all my stitches cut and my
Okay,
markings.
sometimes it's easier to take the basting out from the back.
Right. Especially with all these loops.
Yeah. Because it's got that nice layer of wash away mesh on there.
Right.
And then you can just tear away your heat away stabilizer. It'll just rip right off.
Right. I ripped both of them off.
Okay, that's fine. But there's no need to try to pick any of the wash away out, because you run the risk of grabbing some of those loops
Right.
and
Well,
elongating them.
oh, so just leave that in there?
Leave that in there. You're gonna wash it to get rid of the stuff on the back anyhow, and the stuff underneath the fill. So it'll all just go away.
Well, and you're right. That way you don't risk.
Right. Because no matter how careful you are, there's always that one little loop that
Yep.
snagged.
So I can't really iron my markings out either, can I?
What did you use for marking pen?
I used a friction pen.
They should wash out.
Oh, will it? Okay. Since I'm lucky and have two of the same hoop, the other one is ready to go, so I can do the
Oh.
leap.
All right.
Oh, and you know what? That center section's pretty big. It just came out kind of by itself.
Yeah. Of the heat away? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
No,
big.
the wash away.
Oh.
The heat
Okay.
away came out.
All right. How's your satin stitch doing, Sandy?
Mine's not covering like Diane said hers did, but because with loops, I was cutting close, but anyway, I do think my theory, I may try it and go back into the original design without deleting. Well,
Well,
I
but
think I know what I'm going to do. I might, make it a smidgen bigger. Oh, that won't work though, because then anyway. I'm happy with it though. I like the idea and it's a nice design.
thank you.
Did you digitize this?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
I like it. I like it.
I'm
Thank you.
impressed.
It was fun.
So this is what they call embossed, right?
Yes, the mesh
Bill?
looking part that holds the loops down. And then you've
Yeah.
got the part that puffs up inside those stitches. Yes, that's what they call embossed. And the fluffier your towel is, the more effective it is.
So I'm
Unless-
trimming the stabilizer down around closer to the, so there isn't as much to wash out.
On the back.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do that too.
because that's a bunch of glue to go into your washer.
Yeah, but it's not really glue. It's a starch.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
So you can't really tell how cute it is because it has, I'll turn my camera on. Ta-da!
It looks great.
Oh, that's neat. Oh, that's really neat.
See the matte thread?
Let's
And I
see
thought
the back. Let's see the back of your pumpkin. See? It looks as good as the front.
it really does. It looks so good.
You did good.
Oh, you did.
Well, I couldn't do it. You had to put it on the washcloth, so you did good.
So, I think that'll be cute just sitting on the sink where people could just pick one up and use it, since I couldn't
Yeah.
find towels with that stripe on it.
Yeah, they just don't make them.
Yeah. I wonder if that All About blanks, if they sell them. I bet they sell them there without it. I didn't look.
Yeah, they may. I did not look either. I just got these two and they got stripes on them. But at least they only have one.
See, that was what I liked about this one, is it only had the one.
Yeah,
So,
but that looks great. It'll be real nice and fluffy when you wash it.
I know. I love how it puffed up like that. That's super cute. And the matte thread I thought looks nice.
It does.
So I think I'll try doing the other one with the green.
Okay. When Sandy's ready, I'll show you both if you do a applique on a flat towel, how I trim them so it's even, and then a couple observations about doing the fringing.
I'm ready to put mine up and I'm thinking, I'm not sure. I was going to try to share you the picture, but well, we'll see if this works.
Okay.
Ah.
Oh, there you are. Okay. All right. That looks okay.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I'm going to do it the right way the next time.
No, you're going to do it a different way then.
Well, yeah, yeah. Thank you
We
so
won't
much.
call it right or wrong. We'll just
Okay. Thanks.
All right, well, thank you. Okay, so Diane, you got a minute?
Yep.
Okay, so I have here and this is not on a towel, this is just a sample. I have done my stitching with the applique, pumpkin applique design. So it's got the triple stitch on the edge, and I want to trim it so that my fringe is nice and even like this. All right. The easiest way I could figure out to do that is to take your design after you've trimmed out your, pulled away your stabilizer and stuff, turn it upside down, take the backing or the towel and fold it tight against that triple stitch. Then take an add a quarter ruler. Are you familiar with what an add a quarter ruler is?
Yes.
Okay, and slide that so that the ledge is right up against your folded edge. All right.
So there's
And
another
then-
tool, just when I think I have it all.
Oh no, you'll never have it all, Diane. There is no such thing. They keep coming up with new stuff.
Oh, Lord.
So then you just take your rotary cutter and trim that off, and you have a nice 1/4 inch edge that you can fringe. All right, and then
Cool,
you just
cool.
go to the next edge, again, face down. Pull your towel back tight against that triple stitch. Take your add a 1/4 ruler and snuggle it right up to that fold and trim that off. And now you have a nice 1/4 inch edge to make your fringe. So as you're making your fringe, and I started this one, you know, ideally when you put your fabric down, it's going to be nice and square in your hoop. Well, that doesn't happen because it just doesn't. So as you're fringing it, you're going to come to a point where you have some threads left on one end that need to be fringed, but you're fringed all the way down to your triple stitch on the other end of that. So what I do is I pull my thread as far as I can get it, and then I take my scissors and I trim it to the same length as the rest of the fringe. So when I pull this down, it's going to stop because it's caught by that triple stitch. And I just carefully trim it off. And when you get that done all the way down, that you've gotten these extra pieces of thread pulled out of your fringe, it'll look like it's perfect.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's clever.
I mean, because otherwise you just be driving yourself crazy trying, you know, there's no way I could do it so that my fabric was just perfect and that, you know, when I could fringe completely down to that triple stitch without having some of them caught. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Clever.
it makes a nice even fringe.
And you said linen and what?
There's a fabric called Osnaburg. Anything that's a kind of a coarser weave. And also be aware that, say, okay, you're looking at this and you say, I think I'd like to use denim. Okay. Well, look at denim very carefully because a lot of times, and other fabrics too, the colors and the weight of the threads that go across or up and down are not necessarily even. They're not necessarily the same. So you could end up with fairly large threads on one that say went up and down, and the threads that went across might be a much lighter weight or even a different color. So check your fabric before you stitch it down to see if you're going to like what happens when you fringe it. Does that make sense?
Good. Yeah.
Okay. But you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
there's you know,
I was gonna
like
say on the
twill fabrics sometimes will have heavier threads in them. You'll just have to look at the fabrics and see. I just don't recommend anything that's the normal quilt weight cotton because the threads on it just aren't that big and they're not going to really make a pretty fringe. The other thing, when I was very first stitching this out, I stitched it on polar fleece.
Oh, I like that.
And I was thinking, well, gee, these would make really cute pockets on a jacket.
Or little pillows for little kids, you know?
Or little pillows, yeah. So if you start to play with the size of the design, be aware that it's, the gap in between your stitches here is gonna be different if you resize it. And especially for towel.
What if I instead of just you know how you use the thing and make it keep, you add stitches too? I mean, is that still going to be that way, you think? Instead of just making it like 20%, Cetera?
I haven't played with that, Sandy, so
So if you did it in my Sew-net,
if you it's really easy to create one of these designs.
Did you do it in quilting, in the quilting part?
I do it in the digitizing.
I mean, with the Quilt Wizard, so you got that background put down like that? Or oh, okay.
Okay, are you familiar with the Sew-net software, Sandy?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably not as much as you, of course.
Well, I have a lot to learn, believe me. When you are the pattern fill, if you drop down that list of the different kinds of pattern fills that you have.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You have I used the curved crosshatch fill.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I used a gap of 1.2.
Oh, okay, I just wrote that. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I brought in my graphic as a background. I started the design with no picture. Okay, so I just had a solid square of curved crosshatch fill.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I went to the background and got in view. You can edit your background.
Yes.
Okay, and that's where I brought in my background and sized it to the size I want. And then I went back to digitizing. And I used the whole function.
Oh, okay. Okay.
To trace my pumpkin and my leaf.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then because when it stitches it out, you saw that it would go over to the edge to move from one place to the other, and the stitches that it used as it moved were not small. They were like the basting stitches almost.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just doing a running stitch for the line, I used that double zigzag and set that at 1.2 for width. So it would
that's
cover
what
over those running stitches.
Oh, I thought it was a bean. I like that better.
Well, there was some way I had to figure out how to nail those longer stitches down.
Right.
So that was my way of doing it, that I used the curved crosshatch for my pattern fill. And for the line, I used the double zigzag with a 1.2 width.
It really is nice. Really nice.
And it's fun to do.
well, that's so above my brain wave thing.
Well, someday we will get you there, Diane.
Oh, I don't know. I question my software ability.
No, you just have to take the time
Just to
and
keep, yeah.
and sit down and not, be doing 10 things at the same time.
Right. Well, how many, I mean, it looks like you practiced a bunch of those little things.
I did, because I did not, you mean my towel with all that stuff on it?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was not aware Yeah, see, I made me a 9 patch, and each one of those 9 squares had different properties. You know, like stitch length and that gap, and maybe some were just square crosshatch fills, and some were diamond, and some were curved, you know, all that stuff. But I was not aware of what Karen Charles educated us on about this is all running stitches, and you need to turn off your second tension system, your active stitch technology, or your Viking thing, and go back to your normal tension system, and then increase your tension between 3.6 and 4.0. I was getting loops and driving myself crazy trying to figure out how to do it. And at one point, I actually, just experimenting, did up the tension without turning off the second tension system. But what she said made sense, and that's, you know, about half of this stuff was done prior to me hearing what she had to say and putting it in practice.
Out of everything she said, that little nugget that you remembered just amazes me.
Well, because
Because you had been working on this probably.
yeah, it related to what I was working on.
Right.
So it made a whole lot of sense.
Golly.
So now, Judy, just kind of an outside question. I just deleted that design and brought the leaf in with the satin stitch. I know it's the right, because I paid attention and looked at it on the screen. And I noticed that it left all my other settings the same.
It will,
Like-
okay? When you change those settings, those are just temporary settings, okay? And
Right.
but when you turn your machine off or you manually change them again,
They'll
and
stay.
they, okay, when you turn the machine off and turn it back on, it'll go back to the defaults.
Okay, good.
Okay, so you don't have to worry about it unless you were going to do some more embroidery that was not, you know, didn't have all these kind of straight stitches in it. If you were going to do something with a pattern fill or something,
Right.
you would either want to reverse those settings, or if you weren't sure that you remembered what they were to start with, turn your machine off, turn it back on, and it'll reset itself.
Okay, cool. Because I know I went to change them and noticed they had stayed the same.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, so it's good to know that once I turn it off, then they will go back.
Right. If you go to into the settings menu on your icon, and let me see if I can get this thing to turn around and look at the icon for me. Okay, if you go use the gear down here at the bottom and go into your settings menu, you will see that you have 2 columns. You have your
Right.
default settings and your temporary settings. Well, your temporary settings right now are going to look different than mine, because mine are the same as the default settings, but yours is going to have that check mark gone.
So mine
white-
doesn't rate it like that.
Huh?
Mine doesn't show, oh wait. Embroidery.
Are you on? I'm sorry, you need to be in embroidery settings. Once you get into settings, you have sewing settings, embroidery settings, machine settings. I'm in embroidery settings.
Because I was in stitch out settings, but it still worked.
Yeah.
Do you have stitch out settings?
Oh, when you go, if you're in stitch out, then you get the menu like you normally do as you're going through setting up an embroidery. Okay, yes, it depends on whether I was in embroidery edit.
Right, and I
And
was in
that's
stitch.
why I'm getting this screen. If you are already in embroidery stitch out and touch your settings, you're going to get the screen that you see right before you put your hoop on to
Right,
embroider a design out.
perfect.
Okay,
Yep,
all right.
cool.
But if you know, this is another screen where you've got the temporary settings and your default settings. And where there's an orange box, that's a temporary setting that you can play with. And the white boxes are the defaults.
I see.
Okay.
All righty. Well, now I'm ready to stitch my leaf.
All right, go for it.
Again, for saving me this morning. Not that it probably wouldn't have been the end of the world if there wasn't stabilizer under my wash towel satin stitches, but it worked out great.
But you know what'll happen eventually if you don't? As you wash that and use that, those stitches are going to move around. And when
Oh,
they
really?
move around, just, you know, as you say you dried your hands on it, right? You kind of
Right.
stretch the towel a little bit here and there and so forth, and going through the wash machine, the dryer. Those eventually, the loops can eventually work their way through those stitches.
So let me ask you this. So I bought, it doesn't matter, but I bought some pre-made napkins. So same deal as a towel, right? Because you're not going to make a towel. And I put a monogram on, it was just some cotton napkins.
Right.
Those are okay without the heat away topper under the stitches because it's not a loopy situation.
Perfect. Yes.
But
You're
I used
correct.
the topper on top, you know, the wash away topper.
Sure.
Okay.
Because that just makes it, the threads lay nicely on top of the fibers of the napkin rather than sinking into them.
Right.
Yes.
But you wouldn't need the heat away because there's no loops underneath to come poking out. I'm just trying to cement in my head because, you know, you go to do it like, okay, so what stabilizers do I need now?
Right. Yeah, you only need the heat away if you want to, if you've got something that's going, you've got loops
Okay.
or fuzz. You know, if you were, say you were doing it on
On Minky or
like
something?
a minky kind of thing that has, you know, like fur.
Then you'd want it there.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I'm
This was
sure you're going
really
to have a
good.
whole bunch of leaves and pumpkins.
Well,
This was really good.
so they had these cute washcloths at Tuesday morning, you know, down by Safeway.
Uh-huh.
And it was a package of 4 of them, I think, for $5. So I thought I would do a set for my girlfriend for her birthday. That's the beginning of November.
Oh, that would be fun.
Too,
They'd be
you
great
know,
for Thanksgiving.
yep. They're super cute. And you could actually make the design smaller and put it in the corner of a napkin or something like on an angle.
Yeah.
That would be cute. So
Um,
ideas, so little time.
that's true. So, all right, Sandy, you okay with what we've
Yeah.
done today?
Thank you so much for letting me join you. Oh,
Oh,
thank you so much.
I'm so
Yeah,
glad you did. I hope you keep joining us.
I would like that. Yeah, I'll be better prepared the next time.
All right. Are you aware of the workbook classes that we have?
I've been following it on YouTube, but your Viking ones, you have a book. Is that through Viking? I mean, Pfaff doesn't
Yeah.
have that, does it?
We have workbook classes for the Viking and separate ones for the Pfaff.
I do watch that on the YouTube after the fact. I have done that.
Well, you
See, I
can-
didn't buy my things from you, and I didn't think that I could, participate.
Well, evidently Carol invited you.
Well, on this, it didn't have a fee, but I think I checked at some things, and I thought if you bought your machine from you, I think. Well, I'll check into it. I'll check into it.
Okay, but next Tuesday will be the Pfaff workbook class, and it's on design positioning,
I will look into
or
that.
precise positioning. I'm sorry, that's the wrong terminology.
Yeah. I'll look into that. I do a lot I know on Facebook, I look at Charles, those Pfaff and Viking gals are really good. You
Yeah,
need to
Karen
watch them.
Charles is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll check into that. Thanks.
Okay. I'm so glad you were here.
So am I. I know the designs are good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And nice talking to you, Diane.
Nice to meet you, Sandy. Now, where do you live?
I'm in Spring Hill, Florida.
Yeah, I
And-
thought you were far away.
And I've seen you, you're on the Facebook because a lot of, you girls have the videos on. And so.
Oh, so you recognize all of us. Oh, that's funny.
We're
Okay.
famous, Diane.
What's that? What'd you
So-
say, Judy?
I said we're famous.
I guess so.
Or infamous, I don't know which.
Yeah.
Well,
I could
and
only
during
assume
yeah,
much.
without
So.
going into, physically into a lot of classes, it was just a joy to see your store, on Facebook to go through some of these, things on our machines and software.
Well, good. How long have you had your icon?
I've only had it since March, but I've been a Pfaffy for years. I had the Pro 2s and the Sensation. In fact, I still have my Pro 2s. I didn't get rid of them. So,
Okay. Well,
Yep.
all right. Well, I'm so glad you were with us today.
yeah, I hope to see you again. Thanks.
All right.
All right,
Okay,
ladies.
Diane, thank you.
Thank you, as always.
All right. Have fun.
Okay. Okay,
Bye.
see you next week. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.